My name is Rachael. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story. I grew up homeschooled, youngest of 5 children, at a non-denominational church. My parents were missionaries, and by the time I was born, they were more settled, but that's kind of the environment I grew up in. So I've always had that foundation of going to church, being involved in church. As I got older, I started, having my own questions, having my own opinions, wondering how what I thought could line up with what I'd learned. And there were a lot of things that didn't match. A lot of things I had doubt about, which I think is natural and normal and a healthy part of forming a relationship with God. At times it was hard to know how what I was taught would line up with what I was growing to believe about myself and about the world. I definitely spent a lot of time in churches that were more judgmental than forgiving, I would say, which always confused me. I felt like Jesus was the most forgiving person. He was the friend of the outcast. He was the one, taking people in and being the voice of reason and the voice of acceptance. So what I kept coming back to was the fact that Jesus was at the core of what I believed, not necessarily how a specific church did things. And I could still have, growth within myself and growth with God without having to separate those things. I first started visiting Eastside in January 2020. I moved back to Atlanta at the end of 2019 over the holidays, and I came back, needing a new church. I had a best friend who had driven past this place, and she was like, "Hey, you're back. I'd love someone to go to church with." And I found this place that looks progressive. It looks like they do a lot of outreach. It looks like they're actually involved in the community, which is something we both valued. So I was like, let's check it out. And when I got to Eastside at the beginning of 2020, it was exactly what I was expecting, which is really refreshing. Sometimes you have to try several churches before you find the right one, but in this case, it was pretty easy. I feel like Eastside wears their heart on their sleeve in a way to where they are not afraid to say loudly what they believe. So it was very easy to find this place and already kind of have an idea of what message I might be receiving here. So that's how I found Eastside, and it's also why I stayed. I loved that there was the pantry out front. One of the first things I did was starting to get involved in Eastside was, volunteering for refilling the food pantry, the clothing pantry. I loved that there was a very accessible outside location where anyone in the East Atlanta neighborhood could come by and get what they needed. So that really stood out to me. Of course, everything switched virtually within a couple of months of me being here. But I was still able to continue feeling involved in the online sphere, of course. I was really impressed when Eastside stepped up last June for the anti-racism marches and being involved in that, getting groups together to go participate and stand up for our community in that way further solidified why I was here, how I wanted to be part of this church. Even if we were doing things distance, I knew that whenever things came back in person that I would be back in the pews at this location. So one thing I'm really excited about is the fact that I've officially become a member. It does feel different when, going from kind of being an observer and scoping the place out versus actually jumping in and making that commitment to be more involved. So I'm really excited to have just joined officially as a member. I'm also really excited to get more involved with the band. I just joined my first session with Troy and Camber last week. I'm excited to do more of that. I love music. I think it's a really exciting way that I can contribute. I'm not artistic in a lot of ways, but if I can join in on the band, that's pretty exciting to me. And I'm excited to getting to know people more and seeing more faces in person. Even if we're distanced and masked, it's still exciting to start seeing some faces and get more familiar with who's been attending online, starting to see people in person. So all of that's very exciting to me.